Hi guys, welcome to Ecuador Homestead. So today in this video we're going to be showing you how to make a living fence. Keep watching. Okay, so now y'all have seen in other previous videos about our living fence, and so I decided to come in and show you how we made that living fence. Now, before I get into the video, I want y'all to note that what we're using basically, which I'm thinking is elephant grass. I'm not sure, that may not be elephant grass. Anyways, we're using this plant, this, let me get a piece of it. Anyways, this is a leaf of it right here. We're all surrounded by it. We got actually one right behind us right here. If you can see this one. This is one. And so we're going to be using this type of stick. Now, however, this can be done with a bunch of other varieties of plants. But the basic concept is that you need to be able to stick it in the ground and then it come up. Okay, so like if you think, okay, well, I don't have this plant around on where you live, it's okay. You can try to use another plant that's somewhat like it, okay? So now you're gonna need a machete, and if you don't have a machete laying around your house or something, I'll put a link in the description where you can buy it online. Okay, so you can find the link in the description. Now we're gonna show you the first part, what we have to do to do this. Okay, so now we're back here. We've got one right here, one relatively good looking one. So now we're just gonna cut around it and just gonna cut it like right there. Cut the strips off and we're gonna put it aside. Now, well, I'll just go in and process it like right back here. But the thing is one thing I learned is that you want this to be solid, okay? You see this right there? That's solid. Sometimes if you go all the way up here, so we'll figure out where we're gonna cut it. We're gonna cut it probably, right here. Right about here, we're gonna cut it. There we go. So now let's take a look at this. As you can see, I don't know if you can see, this is starting to get hollow inside. I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to get hollow inside. And so when it gets hollow inside, it has a substantially lot less chance of sprigging and catching and, putting up more shooters. And so this one, we only like to take the bottom ones like this. So it's thick on the bottom and it's good for sprouting. And so this is starting to get hollow, but it doesn't matter since this one is fine. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and collect about 25 of these. Since we kind of pace ourselves, we do a little bit every single day. And we're gonna get 25 of them, and then we're gonna show you how we put them in and establish them and do everything. Okay.
Okay, so now I'm here working on this economic live fence that Brandon might have already talked with you about, but so I'm stepping in here in the middle of it. But you can see a section here that I've done. This one here we're gonna keep some sheep in it. So anyway, you can see where we're crisscrossing it. We put them about, depending on your animal, we have a little fencing we put on the bottom anyway, but we put them about 6 inches apart, 5 to 6 inches apart. Sometimes you'll have a root or something that causes you to have to put them closer together, a little farther apart. But anyway, we crisscross them, and none of this is wired yet. I'll show you in a second a section that we have wired. But I'll just push a few in here, and you can kind of see how this works. And so actually this stuff, they call it elephant grass. I've seen it rooting either way I put it. Whether I put it, this is actually the way we cut it in this direction, this down. You can tell by the little sheathing here which way is down. But we've actually seen it in multiple ones rooting, even when they put it up the wrong way. So, but we still try to keep it all the same direction in which we cut it. And so I'll push it in pretty good, and I usually do about 4 or 5, then I'll go do 4 or 5 the other way. We don't really work with strings trying to keep a straight line, because a lot of times you touch the string and you'll end up pushing it one way or another. Just kind of watch where you're going. You might have a tree, like I'm shooting for that tree as I've been working, and just try to keep headed toward the tree. It causes the fence to kind of weave a little bit, but it actually adds character to it, in my opinion. But it's kind of, my oldest daughter calls this the Swiss Family Robinson fence. But anyway, we'll push that one in, and so I'll do about 4 of them, and then I'll do them the other direction, and you kind of get a look at it. the thicker these things are, a little bit more tougher they are to push in because there's a little bit more surface area to have to push in. And these things, sometimes you'll push them in and they'll be gapped real far apart, or sometimes they'll be gapped too close together. That really doesn't matter, because when you come back to wire them, as long as the base is about right, 5 or 6 inches apart, then when you come back and wire them, you can get them back, you know, pretty close. It'll look pretty close. So I wouldn't worry about too much about how it looks up above too much. They'll kind of move around a little bit depending on how it shoves in and that kind of stuff. But so just kind of keeping, in general, kind of keeping in line. It takes about a good month or so before you start seeing, you know, sprigs coming out off of them. But you'll start seeing little sprigs jump out along the sides of them. And we'll show you a section here in a minute. It's been about 2 months, and you'll see a lot of good growth, new growth coming up out of it. Okay, so here we have a section that has been about 2 months ago, and just on the lower section here, you can, on the other side, we keep chickens in here. You can see some chicken wire. Now, if the chickens wanted, and we've had it happen, the chickens can jump up here and get on the wire and get through, especially right now. Before a lot of this growth, as you can see it popping up here, a lot of this before it has a chance to come up, the chickens really actually can get through, but they aren't real aggressive about it. I guess one of the reasons is because they're fed pretty good and they have enough room to free range in there. The main thing, we want to keep them enclosed so we can get their eggs and don't have to hunt for them and whatnot. But you can see the new growth on here, and like I said, you can see how we've put our chicken wire on the inside, and that's kept our chickens pretty much in without a problem. So there's your growth, and I'll show you, this is already wired, but I'll show you a section over here where I'm in the process of, after I've shoved them all in, I go back and I wire them together. So if you want to, we'll go over and look at that. So, all right, so here we have this fence. Here's some more, this stuff just growing up right here. I'm just gonna knock down so I can get in here and do stuff. But you can see how we're coming along with this part of the fence here. From to this point, I have it wired, and I'll just wire a few pieces just to show you how I do it. And then this section here has not been wired yet, so that's, you know, I'm coming along. And what you want to do as you wire this, I kind of do like a jagged up and down pattern to make sure that every piece is actually connected together. And what you'll find when that's the case, if you kind of shake your fence, the whole thing will propagate, the whole fence will shake. Now, I'll tell you how you can secure that in a minute. But if you know, for chickens, it doesn't really matter, especially once it roots well and the stuff starts growing up. This kind of shaking chickens aren't aggressive like that. For something like sheep or a dog, if you want to put a good sized dog in here, it'll do it, it'll hold them. You want to put a diagonal every 4 or 5 feet, maybe on the outside of your fence. So when you tie in your diagonal, it really locks it in good and actually gives you kind of a good sturdy fence. As I mentioned, I think earlier, we come back and we'll put in a really cheap plastic fence. It's got little squares in it. It's really thin, but nothing can really push through it really easily. And that just kind of secures your fence, keeps anything from coming in and out. If you have chickens, I use chicken wire over there, but you don't have to use chicken wire. You can use this plastic fence or a dog or anything like that. Because this is really your main support to keep them from being able to push through. If you have the little plastic fencing on the side of it, which costs like $1 a meter, and we end up cutting that down. We use strips, so we end up getting it for like 30 cents a meter. So you can really cover a lot of ground for a pretty cheap cost. So anyway, I just come through here and I just kind of twist the wire like that, and then so that way I don't keep cutting them. I started off by doing that. Where are my cutters? Okay, here's, I had them under my arm. All right, so you just cut it like that, but you don't want to cut each individual wire first. I like to cut them so that way you don't cut some that are too small and end up having to get rid of them. But then I'll space the next one like this, and I go down, twist it, and then cut it off my roll and tighten it. And the roll just kind of dangles down on the side. So I went up and I came down, so now I'm gonna come back up. Sometimes if one's kind of short or whatever, you may have to, you know, go down twice or whatever to pick up the shorter length, and you'd see what I'm talking about once you actually mess around with it. But you don't want to get too tight because you'll snap the wire and then have to end up doing it again. But all right, so I came up, down, up. So now I'm gonna come back down, and I'll get this one here. And this is when, you know, your pattern of however you're gonna make it look, you know, like an relatively even pattern, is where it will tie in once you wire them together. So you don't have to be real concerned, like I was saying earlier, with making sure you got them exactly. As long as the base is spaced right at the bottom, this stuff up here at the top, you'll get that when you come back and start to wire them. So that's really all that is. All there is to it. Just kind of back and forth. It's kind of a little bit slower and tedious, but it adds kind of a neat, unique look if you don't mind it. I think it's kind of a neat look. Best thing is virtually no cost. I mean, you know, you got this stuff growing, and you can literally put yourself in a good fence, a living fence, for virtually no cost. And fencing is a huge thing. Usually that's your big cost on a farm that a lot of people just, you know, have to swallow. And this, you know, this is great. It does what we need it to do. And next, the only thing I think I'll probably show you is some doors we made out of it. You may or may not do that. You may put in like some different doors, but we actually make some doors out of it. The problem with the doors, of course, is it's not secured into the ground, so it will die, and they'll probably last a year and a half maybe, and then you may have to put another one up. So you may not want to fiddle around with that and get yourself a better door, but we'll show you what we did. So, okay, so here's one of the doors we made out of this. We just have it secured with the wire two directions at each point, and so you can just see how we made like just like a square and then crisscrossed it, and it just pushes open like so. And what you might have to do is make sure the ground, depending on how it lays, kind of dig it out or make sure that it's going to be able to open when you do it. But this door we made for virtually nothing. We still got to put the chicken wire on here. We have another one with chicken wire on it, but I think you probably get the idea. Just use the wire to secure the chicken wire to it. And we use actually this really thick wire, probably like fencing wire or whatever, to actually make a hinge with or whatever. So you can do that, or like I said, if you don't want to mess with having to replace these once every 12 to 18 months, then you may want to go ahead and get you a better post and, you know, put you something in more permanent. And certainly understand if you don't want to mess around with that. I'm not sure that I want to after I have to change them. So, but anyway, that's it.
Okay, so one more thing before I close out the video, I want to show you that over here, I'm in the chicken pen right now. We've got a bunch of chickens, of course. And so one of the things I want to show you is that over here we put this black plastic that my dad was talking about up here. And the reason why we put it up here was because they did start to jump over here because we were throwing food. You can tell actually all over here it's really dirty because they have been, you know, over here eating and scratching and stuff. And so because this is where we throw the food, and so they actually started to jump over here because they thought, you know, assumed this place is having food, and so they started jumping over here, and that became a problem. So we just put like a lining of this up on top, and then there's chicken wire on this. And so one of the things I want to cover again is saying that please note that this doesn't only acquire for this type of fencing. It's pretty much for any other type of fence that you can, any type of you can do this with any type of plant that really you can stuff into the ground and then it grows. So any type of plant that does that, like these elephant grass does, you can make a living fence out of. And so we just decided, okay, well, we're just going to take this elephant grass and we're going to, you know, start chopping it down because we have it all over our property, and it's actually been a really pain because they cause like stumps. Let me get you a good example of one. Here we go. A good stump like that, and then you walk over and it hurts really bad, like if you step on it. Now this is kind of a big one. However, there are some actually smaller ones, and they're like, you know, we chop them and they may be just this bit above the ground, and boy gosh, do they hurt when you land on them. Anyways, so I thought I'd share that with you guys real quick. This is kind of what we do to keep them in somewhat. So like at least until these little green pieces, which they're starting to do already, like this. Once this starts coming up, then we can almost just take it all down because that'll hold it up. Anyways, thought I'd share that with you. Hope you enjoyed that video. Hope that was helpful. That information was helpful to you. Sorry. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe for more videos like this one. Check me out on Patreon if you haven't already. I'll leave a link in the description. Like, subscribe, become a patron, and I'll see you next time in Ecuador Homestead. Bye.